Well, hello there. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the first of the Spitfire Sessions. Now, you know how normally we have forums going on during championship matches. We'll pile into the pavilion, most certainly not 2 meters apart. No cricket at the moment, sadly, but we are bringing Kent cricket to you. So thank you very much to all of you on tuning in, however this works. We've got 45 minutes with three very special guests, some insights, some incredible players, some coaches. We're joined by so many of the wider community. I'd also just like to say at this time that a lot of people connected to the club are working on the front line as key workers in hospitals, working in care homes, essential services, and we are continuing to use the Spitfire ground to host meetings for our close neighbours at the Kent and Canterbury Hospital. So on behalf of everyone at Kent Cricket, please accept our heartfelt thanks for what you're doing to keep us all safe and the county moving during these challenging times. Now, I'm Steve Watts. Normally, we'll be sitting at the Spitfire ground introducing out to that, keeping everyone abreast of what's going on. Be really excited right now about the start of the season, about the T20 to look forward to, and also, of course, championship cricket and everything else. But of course, it's all on hold, and that's why we're doing these Spitfire sessions. And I want to say a big thank you to Spitfire and Shepherd Neame, who are sponsoring these sessions. We've got a panel of three people. Even when there's no cricket going on, Spitfire are still looking after us. Different class Spitfire, Shepherd Neame as sponsors. So let's get on to introducing our panel. First up, we have Kent's Director of Cricket, Paul Downton, who's got lots of experience of adapting to new formats as player and director, identifying talent for all formats of the game. Good afternoon, good evening, Paul Downton.
Hi, good evening, Steve. Good evening, everybody.
And we'll be catching up with Paul very shortly. Next, delighted to be joined by a man who's had a terrific 12-18 months or so. He is Kent and England's Joe Denley. 231 appearances for the Kent Spitfires in both formats of the white ball game. He is Kent's leading run scorer in T20 cricket, and of course was a part of the 2007 T20 Cup winning side. Good evening, Joe Denley. How are you, Joe?
Good evening, Steve. Very well, thank you, and good evening, everyone.
Third member of the panel to introduce is brand new to Kent, actually, but no stranger to winning white ball competitions. Hugely successful T20 career domestically and internationally. England World T20 winner, T20 Cup winner with the Sussex Sharks, many years with the lot from next door. Sussex, now Kent's batting coach. Welcome to the Spitfire session. Welcome to Kent Cricket, Mike Yardy. Good evening.
Good evening, Steve, and good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all, or not see you all, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How does this work, this stuff? No idea whatsoever. Thank you very much for sending in your questions. There are a few to get through here in the next 45 minutes or so. And also, you can send yours in. Any questions that you may think of, submit your questions. Please use the messenger chat function, which you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. Is that the right-hand side? Well, I'm not sure anyway, the way I'm looking. Anyway, it should be on the right-hand side of your screen under the Q&A tab. Type your name and your question below, and we'll endeavour to get through as many of your questions as possible. And also there'll be a prize, courtesy of Shepherd Neame and Spitfire, for what the panel decides is the best question of the lot. We're going to get into your questions in just a moment. I'm going to start, if I may, with Paul Downton, Kent's Director of Cricket. Paul, unprecedented times. We should be enjoying the start of the season. The weather, of course, is glorious, and there's no cricket going on. Don't envy you at the moment. How on earth are you sorting out contracts? Are you making any sort of plans? Are all sorts of scenarios up in the air?
Yeah, it's a great show. We should be down at the Aegeus Bowl. Went into our second game in the championship. As you say, brilliant weather. And it is only just over 4 weeks ago that the players returned from South Africa early. But at that time, we were looking forward to a really exciting season. It's been extraordinary, as it has been for so many people. So cricket's not alone in this. But we've gone through a situation where the players arrived back from South Africa, immediately had a few days off, and then have in effect been isolated ever since. So poor Mike Yardy, who arrived back on the 1st of April from Australia to be our new batting coach, hasn't even met the players yet, other than obviously having meet them, not seen them before, and through these sort of webinars that we've been having. We've gone through the process of furloughing, in an effort to retain jobs when we do come out of this. We furloughed most of the off-field staff, and now almost all the players, with the exception of Sam Billings, who's going to work for the club, and he's remained out of furlough. And Joe, of course, great to see him tonight as a centrally contracted player with England. He's also able to help us out and join in on these sort of things. So it has been extraordinary. It's been very busy, but huge amount of respect for the way in which the players are dealing with it, the way in which the coaches are dealing with it. And the important thing is that, as we do come out of this, and we will at some point, that we come out having stuck together and in the best possible frame of mind and with the best sort of physical fitness that we can do. And who knows what cricket will have, but maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, but hopefully we'll get something later in the year.
Well, Joe, as a centrally contracted player, I'm not sure what your plans would have been or were for the start of the season. Were you expecting to be involved with Kent in any way before getting back on the international scene in a few weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually really looking forward to getting back and being amongst the fellas. It feels like a long time since I was involved with the boys at Kent. It's obviously been a very enjoyable past 12, 18 months for myself, involved with the England side. But yeah, there's no place like home, and like I say, it feels like I've been away for a very long time to the Spitfire ground, and just catching up with all the boys and being involved. I was very much looking forward to getting back for sort of pre-season and getting amongst it. And being at the Aegeus Bowl now, like Paul just touched on, I was looking forward to that, and unfortunately that's going to have to wait now. And can't wait to hopefully get back sooner rather than later.
Just want to ask, is there a slight positive in this? I'm sure you're frustrated to not be meeting up with the lads and not be playing cricket, but is a little bit of extra downtime, a little bit of extra rest actually not always a bad thing?
Yeah, I agree. There is a time for rest and sort of refreshing, and I suppose when you're touring and away, travelling all over the world, you certainly do miss home. And but I think being in this isolation now, this makes me miss tour life. So can't have it both ways, can you?
Evidently, you do what you want. Quick question for Mike Yardy. Mike, welcome to Kent, or I think you're probably still in Sussex somewhere, actually. How frustrating is this? Into a brand new job, I haven't been able to do anything.
Yeah, I think it's really unique. I kind of come back from Australia, as Paul said, kind of late March, kind of, but knowing that I wouldn't be able to start kind of on time. But it's frustrating, and like the first thing you want to do when you start a new job is meet people, get to know people, and obviously circumstances have kind of stopped that. But you kind of, I think, like Joe said, it makes you appreciate a lot of what you do enjoy about the job and about coaching. So it's given an opportunity to kind of take a step back and think about things, and and raring to go when we're allowed.
Now, you are, of course, Kent's batting coach. I'm trying to claw back my memory here of when you were phenomenally successful for Sussex and indeed England. No one could ever get you away when you had the white ball in your hand. Are you going to offer some bowling tips as well?
I'm sure I will at some point. I know Min Patel does a very good job with the spinners. I don't know actually if I could call myself a spinner that bowled it that quick. I think I'm looking forward to obviously do the batting job. I've done that at Sussex, and then with New South Wales and Sydney Thunder in the winter. But yeah, I think as a coach, you're there to not just kind of pass on your experience as a batting coach, but if I can add some value as with the ball as well, then yeah, sure, I'll definitely do that. So I think I was actually probably more successful with the ball in T20 than batting. So
I just looked up actually your figures from the final that Sussex was successful in. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't write it down, but from memory, 4 overs, 17 runs in a final. Absolutely phenomenal. You've got to be passing on some tips with that white ball, surely.
I think maybe don't look at my figures from my last game playing T20 cricket. I think second to last over went for 34, so it's quite a good time to retire, I think. So.
Right, let's get into the first of the questions that's been sent in. Thank you very much, by the way, to everyone who has got involved here. The first one comes from Anonymous, who's actually sent in quite a lot of questions for this one. We'll throw this one at Joe, I think, to start. Joe, how do you prepare for a T20 game in comparison to any other format? And if I can just put an extension on that, has the preparation for T20 over the years changed?
Yeah, that is a good question. It's interesting. It's one of the challenges, I suppose, that we have to deal with throughout the season, chopping and changing formats. And of course, T20 cricket is all about entertainment, and I suppose your preparation is going to change, and you adapt your training methods to what's in front of you, or certainly I do. I suppose you're always planning ahead in terms of what bowlers you're going to be facing, and coming up with different plans, so you're well prepared. And T20 is no different, I suppose, in that regard, but you obviously would practice your boundary hitting, your range hitting. There'd be quite a lot of practice we'd do out in the middle of the ground on the actual square, as opposed to the nets we use at the side. Just trying to get our range in terms of how hard we need to hit the ball. Can we hit pockets? All the different things, I suppose, that come with one days and T20 cricket. It's about your boundary hitting and finding those gaps in the outfield where you can pick up your 2s and 3s, and you try and adapt your preparation to, I suppose, putting yourself in those scenarios, putting yourself under pressure, to try and perform in that way once the games come along. And I suppose, yes, as the game's developed, we see in more and more now 6 hitting and guys being able to clear the ropes. I think when T20 first started, a pass score was probably, if you got 150, you're probably happy with that. But nowadays, teams are constantly getting up and around 200. So that, I think that just shows how the game's evolved, and how important it is to be able to clear the ropes and I suppose lift a few more heavier weights as people do these days.
Well, you mentioned there what used to be a good score. Like you say, you used to have a good handle, didn't you, on a pass score on a T20 match? Now I'm never quite sure. I mean, do you guys have totals in mind? Do you get to a game? Do you look at the pitch? Do you look at your opposition? Do you look at their bowling lineup? And indeed their batting line, if you think, look, this is a good score tonight in this game? Does no one really know anymore?
There's a lot of research that happens now with preparation. There's a lot of data that we use. Obviously, like you touched on there, different grounds you play at, different bowling attacks you're coming up against, average scores at different grounds. But of course that can change depending on what the weather's doing, and everything like that. But yeah, we'll have a good idea of pass scores at that ground and what generally is a winning score. But that's never a given. It all depends on the day, and if you're in a position to go beyond those scores, then obviously you're going to try and do that. But like I say, we have all the data and the information of all the grounds we play at, of all the bowlers we're coming up against. We'll have video analysis before each game, and team meetings, coming up with plans and different options against different bowlers, what their batters look to do in the power play, outside the power play. So yeah, it's not just a case of turning up and trying to hit the ball for 6 every ball. It's there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and a lot of strategy behind the method. So yeah, that has certainly changed as the years have gone on.
Thank you very much, David Carter, for getting in touch and sending us your question. I'm going to throw this one to Mike Yardy if I can. It's more an extension really of what Joe's been telling us. How have tactics changed in T20? Remember, this is a T20 focused Spitfire session. How have the tactics changed since the competition started? You would have played. Was you there in the first year, Mike, or not? And do you have a dossier on opponents showing their strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I think back to times in the past where you'd be very formulaic about how you go about kind of a bowling order. You might bowl 6 overs of seam top and then spin in the middle and then seam at the end. And a batting team, you'd be quite rigid in your batting lineup. But I think now, I think tactics have changed. You very much understand who your best players are in those first 6 overs, and then someone who might be potentially batting at 3, if you're still in the first 6 overs, they might shift down the order, and someone who's good at playing spin in the middle, they might shift up the order. If you've got 3-4 overs left, you might have someone who's very good at hitting balls from ball 1. So I think now the kind of modern player now has to be really adaptable in what they're kind of able to do, and also I think they have to not make sure they haven't got a huge ego as well, because it can be, I remember it myself going up and down the order, well, more down the order, and it's quite it can be, it can take a little bit of a hit on the ego. So I think you have to understand that certain people have different skill sets, and you have to adapt with that. And in terms of kind of dossiers and opposition, I think there's no information on a bowler that everything you want to know on a bowler's out there. And you only have to watch number of games on TV. If things are changing, then you can quickly pick up on that. It's a case of making sure that I think you don't have too much information. I think sometimes a batsman know what you do well. I think sometimes I've seen players kind of get very much caught up in what the opposition do well and forget their own strengths. So I think it's really important that a player understands what he does well, and if he can kind of get that right, then he is going to give himself the best chance, rather than worrying too much what the opposition kind of put into the table. So I think it's a mixture of both. I think you understand what information is out there and what the opposition is doing, but you also know what you do well. And I would always encourage a player to understand their strengths and stick with that first, and then be adaptable from there.
Thank you to another anonymous sender of a question here, which is currently bowlers are allowed to deliver 2 bounces per over in tests and ODIs and 1 in T20 internationals. So is it time to change that rule and permit 2 bounces per over in T20 cricket across the board? Paul, I'll throw that one to you. Do we really want 2 bounces and over in T20 cricket?
I think it's a really interesting question, but I mean, there are so many different variations of bouncers now, slower bouncers, all sorts of things that go on. I think variation is the key to bowling full stop. A bowler these days has to be able to bowl a Yorker, has to be able to bowl 2 or 3 slower balls, and has to have a quicker bouncer, a slower ball bouncer. I actually think it's to do with the ability to hit the ball. So I think there's enough variation now. I don't think the bowlers need 2 bouncers and over. And I think in the end, this is about entertainment. 120 balls. If you're having two bounces and over for 20 overs, then maybe that just gets a little bit too I don't know what the word is, mundane maybe. So I think the rules are right now, but it often comes down to umpiring interpretation. A bouncer over shoulder high, but above head high, all that kind of stuff. It comes down to the umpires as much as anything else. As I say, difficult thing to be a bowler in T20 cricket these days. So I suppose the other side of that coin is to say, well, they need as much scope as possible to be able to get something back at the batsman.
Got a question for you here, Joe, which was sent in by Sam Kennett. Said we're talking the media. We were talking about all sorts of scenarios of how we might get cricket going this summer, and if we do, how we're going to fit in as much as possible. There has been talk, of course, of England fielding 2 different teams, a Test team and a white ball team, to play simultaneously. You might want to think carefully how you answer this, but if you could choose, and you don't have to answer this directly, you can give a politician's answer if you want. If you could choose, which team would you prefer to be a part of and why? Careful.
Great question, isn't it? Teeing me up nicely there. Yeah, that's a tough one. With obviously there's a very important World Cup. We don't know if that's going to go ahead, but obviously the T20 World Cup is this year, and that would obviously be a dream to play in a World Cup, considering, you know, on the back of England just winning the One Day World Cup. And then the flip side of that is Test cricket is the ultimate dream, isn't it? And I've been lucky enough to play a few tests now, and I think at my age, turning 34 in March, you know, I need to give myself the best opportunity to play in every test I can now. Like, if I was to drop out of that test team now for, say, that reason, and someone came in and did well, that would probably be the end of my test career. So yeah, there's certainly arguments for both, and I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but unfortunately I'll leave that job up to the selectors.
When cricket's over, houses of Parliament. Very, very good answer. Brian Lowe, as a follow-up to this one you will definitely want to answer. It's not strictly to do with T20, but I want to ask you this anyway. Wants to know, Joe, how did it feel presenting Zach Crawley, of course, with his cap on international debut? I think I read a piece somewhere in one of the papers about how much pride that gave you. It was sort of a great moment.
Yeah, one of my proudest moments, actually, probably in my career, I think. And I say that because, you know, I haven't played a great deal with Zach. Obviously got to know him a lot over the last few years, but you know, he's a very fine young man and a fine player, as we know. But I think when you get presented your test cap, it's one of the most incredible, most special days of your life. I was lucky enough to have Michael Atherton give me mine, and you know, he's a legend of the game, and that's generally the way it's been over the years. They try and ask past players to come back and give the guys their caps. And I don't know if there wasn't anyone available, or they didn't fancy asking anyone that was working for Sky at the time. But Ruti came and saw me sort of the day before the test and asked if I would like to do it, and I said yes straight away. But I was incredibly nervous. I'm not going to lie. I probably had a more sleepless night that night than I did making my test debut. For reasons I touched on there, it's one of the most special days of your life, and you want to get it right. And obviously I didn't want to get it, or I suppose you want to make it special, and I wanted to make it special for Zach. I wanted to do his family proud, and like I say, it was probably one of the most rewarding things I've done in my career. So yeah, very, very special day.
And a question's come in for you as well, Paul. How is it to see a number of Kent players actually receiving international recognition in the squad at the moment?
Yeah, this is very exciting. You know, I think to have seen Joe get his call up, well, after an absence, after a few years between playing a number of years ago, but to see him play Test cricket has been really rewarding, and to be a major figure in that Ashes series just last summer was really exciting, I think, for all Kent members. And now to see, I mean, Sam's been in and around England squads for a number of years now, and of course he was vice captain of the T20 side only last November. And I think it's really exciting when you see young players come through. I mean, Zach's come through our academy, and to see him make his debut for Kent, and then within almost 3 years, get a chance to go on tour, and then take an opportunity when it arose, and really make the most of it and play 4 test matches so far. I think what's been really striking is the feedback that we get from England and just how well all our players have acquitted themselves. It's not just about what you do on the field, it's about being the way you train, being part of a group, and the way in which you contribute. And we've had some fantastic feedback from all these guys. They should be very proud of themselves. I think everybody at Kent should be very proud of the way that's going. And of course, we also had 2 players picked for the Lions this year, with Matt Milnes and Ollie Robinson. I mean, Ollie Robinson just aged 20, again only in his 2nd year as a professional cricketer really. And Matt Milnes, having joined us from Notts, having just played 6 games for them, come down and took 55 wickets for us in Championship cricket. I think the environment is great, and it's what you want to see. You want our best players to be recognised for exactly that, and I think it's a great credit to the individuals and to the club as well, to the coaching staff, Matt Walker and all the guys, and of course everything that goes on around the players, that when they do get the chance to go and play for the Lions or play for England, then they represent themselves pretty well. And we of course had two guys in the under-19 World Cup as well, with Jordan Cox, very much a local guy from Sandwich, and Hamid Kadri, who's joined us from Derby. So lots of exciting things happening, and it's a while since we've had England representation, but I don't know, I think we're all very proud to see Joe and Zach batting together in South Africa, and well, let's hope we see much more of it too.
Lovely. Just while we have a few technical issues with Steve, I'll just take over some questions. So this one is for all of you on the panel. How do you either prepare the team or as a player prepare for a T20 game? How does that differ in comparison to any other format of the game? Paul, if I start with you.
Well, actually, I'm in awe of the way in which the guys play these days. I was brought up in 60 over cricket was our sort of one-day cricket. They went to 55, they went to 40, and then it went to, and in those days, once a side got more than, if you were chasing and you had more than 6 and over to get in the last 10, then frankly you felt as though you were out of the game really. Now the guys are, 15 and over, 20 and over is not impossible. But the way in which the skill set that both batters and bowlers have is terrific, and to see them practice reverse sweeps, as Joe was talking earlier about hitting pockets, boundary hitting. Boundary hitting has become so important now in T20 cricket. There's a stat out there which says that the side that wins the boundary hitting competition, i.e. what percentage of balls do you hit to the boundary, whether it's 4 or 6s, will tend to win the game. And that ability to take a game away, have that sort of 20, 24 over is really very important now. So yeah, the way in which they field is just revolutionised the game really. So I look in awe and watch them practice, and it's exciting to see.
I think you've summed that up perfectly. Thanks very much, Paul. So we'll move on to the next question, which is to Mike from Samuel. So if you could select one player from the era before T20 cricket to play now, who would you choose and why? Sorry, we just are having some technical difficulties. Bear with us for 1 second.
Sorry, that's a good question. I have 2 names that spring to mind. First is Graham Gooch. I think I must have been 10 watching Graham Gooch play, and I always used to get very excited watching him play. Used to take the game on, and I think him opening the bat in a T20 would have been very good to watch. And the second, he might have played a little bit of T20, but Brian Lara, I think, kind of broke records in Test cricket and first-class cricket, and I'm sure he'd have broken a lot of records in T20 cricket. I think I was only lucky enough to play against him once, but it's an absolute treat to kind of watch that guy play. And yeah, I think if he was still playing, if he was playing T20 cricket now, I think he'd definitely put a lot of bums on seats.
Great, thanks. Mike, still with you. Should one of our opening batsmen always have a licence to attack from the first ball to get the momentum going? What's your views on that?
I think the way, if you look around T20's way teams set up, I think most teams either have 1 or 2 guys who are looking to take boundaries on straight away, and the other guy might have a few more balls to get in. But I think it's got to suit the style of player, because there's no point sending in someone who likes a few balls to kind of have a look and build momentum towards the end of the power play, and asking him to go from ball one if it doesn't suit him. So I think you've got to be adaptable to the players you've got, and also I think the way you take on a power play is quite important if you either don't have the kind of power at the end of the innings to kind of really accelerate, or you do, and you want to kind of set up for your guys at the end of the innings. So I think it can vary about how you go about it, but first and foremost, I think you have to have the players who are comfortable doing that and have the skill set doing that. So that's how I'd answer that.
Great, thanks. And next question is for Joe. You've obviously had an incredible career with Kent, and particularly one-day format. What is your best highlight in a Kent Spitfire shirt?
Wow, that's a good question. There's a few, but one that springs to mind straight away is going back quite a while now. Is the winning the competition in 2007. First time Kent won the trophy. First and only, actually, but hopefully we can change that. Yeah, that would certainly be up there. I was obviously very young at the time, but it was a special group of players. It was led brilliantly well by former captain Rob Key, who I used to really enjoy batting with, actually. We struck up quite a good partnership at the top of the order. And going back to the previous question, I think, which you asked Mike, I think as an opening batter myself, of course, I think there are times, like Mike says, that you have to adjust, and it depends on who you're coming up against and stuff like that. But I think Mike's absolutely spot on. You have to have players there that are willing to take those risks and put the opposition under pressure. I think you watch that England side, even in one-day cricket, not just T20 cricket, but the way they go about it. I'd imagine that there's bowlers there that fear bowling to those guys, and you're already one step ahead there. So just to add on to that question, I think you certainly got a license within that power play, and it's about being brave enough to take on those chances, and having that unselfish manner about your game that you're willing to take those risks. But I think that obviously comes down to the way you practice as well. As long as you're practicing those risks and being smart in your practice and your preparation, then I'm sure yards and walks will have no qualms with you taking that out to the middle. But sorry, to go back to the original question, yeah, the winning it in 2007, there's no more special feeling than winning a trophy. That's why we all play the game, and those are the memories that you hold dearest and you always remember. We've reached finals days a few times. We were speaking before we started this session, myself and Yards, and we went back to obviously 2007 and 2009 when Sussex won it, and we got knocked out to Somerset in the semi-final. And I literally don't remember one ball of that game, and that's probably the only reason being is because obviously we lost, and we were out the finals day. So I literally couldn't tell you anything about that day, but 2007 I can remember a lot about it. It was a fantastic day, a very emotional day for the club, and a fantastic day for the club, like I say. So that is certainly one of my fondest memories.
Brilliant. And the next question's for Mike. This is in from Barry. He's asked, who are the 3 best Kent players that you've played against in T20 cricket?
Oh, blimey, that's a good question. It might take a while to narrow them down. I think, I suppose, first one would be not necessarily in order. I think Azam Mahmood. I think he was a fine all-rounder, and I remember. I think he's playing the team when they won it in 2000, when Kent won it in 2007. And I just remember him always seemed to bowl him well at the death and scoring runs. And I think second would be, I think second would probably be Darren Stevens. I remember always kind of it must have been kind of 2010 time. I remember playing against him, and he was so destructive with the bat, and then would always have his time with the ball as well. And he was a real dangerous player, and someone who definitely gave me a headache when I was bowling against him, and also captaining against him. And then the third, I mean, it's so tricky because I think I remember playing against Joe and Rob Key, and they were again gave you headaches as a captain in those first 6 overs. You know, different styles. I think Rob Key used to kind of get down and kind of lap the seamers. Joe would play kind of more orthodox ways, hitting through the field and over the field, and it always gave you a headache. And we spoke about the kind of first 6 as an important, you know, how you set up your first 6. And I think if you've got 2 quality players who kind of complement each other and can play in different styles, I think that makes it a real headache for a captain. So there you go. I've given you 4 names, and I've probably missed plenty of fine cricketers who I remember. But off the top of my head, yeah, Darren Stevens, Azam, and then the combination of Denley and Key.
Brilliant. Over to you, Joe.
Sorry. Nice work, Yards, getting me in there. Good lad. I just want to just pick up on Yards' first choice, and that was Azam Mahmood. And I think in any T20 team or white ball team, you always, I suppose, you know, all rounders are like gold dust, and he's one of the best all rounders I've played with. That is for sure. I think there was a poll that went out on the Kent Instagram or Twitters about best overseas players to represent Kent, and he was my choice. Only just because the things he could do with the ball, he was a genius with the ball, with the new ball. He could bowl anywhere in those 20 overs. If you needed a wicket, he could come on and get you a wicket in the middle overs. And at the death, he was phenomenal. He had all the skills. He hit these Yorkers more often than not. Could catch anything in the outfield. Not the most athletic, I will say that, because he was almost coming to the back end of his career. But very good hands nonetheless. And with the bat, again, he could bat anywhere in that order. He was very, very destructive. Hit the ball all round, almost a 360 player. Very dangerous at the death again if we needed, you know, 10 and over, 12 and over. We always had a chance with Azza out there, that is for sure. So yeah, just thought I'd add my piece on Azam Mahmood, one of Kent's finest, in my opinion.
Brilliant. And we thanks everyone for sending in your questions. We're trying to get through as many as we can. This one's to you, Joe, and it's from Jacob, who is 7 years old. He said, how do you overcome any nerves before going out for a T20 game?
Great question. Nerves. I think nerves are quite a good thing to have. Obviously, you don't want to get too nervous. T20 is probably a real mixture of excitement and nerves, because at the end of the day, it's entertaining cricket, and you almost get excited to go out and try and hit lots of 4s and 6s. But yeah, I suppose you come up with little routines. You have the way in which you go about it. On match days, you'll have your routine of whatever that is, whether you have a full-on net or just a few throwdowns, and that kind of takes your mind off what you've got coming up in terms of the game, and just trying to work out little different methods of taking your mind off that and being excited about what lies ahead. But I think there's always room for a few nerves, that is for sure. I think players are at their best when they're a bit nervous, and as long as you don't tense up too much and let that overcome you, then you should be all right.
Great, thanks very much, Joe. This one is for Mike, and it's from Colin. As a visiting player, what was it like to play at the Spitfire ground in front of the infamous home crowd?
It was aggressive sometimes, quite aggressive, especially filling on the outfield. There was a few choice words. No, I think it's one of those grounds that's kind of renowned for having a really good atmosphere, and I think that's one thing that I love about the T20 Blast, is that you go to different grounds and you know that there's a real home support, and certainly kind of playing at Canterbury, it was definitely like that. It was definitely, you knew that you were kind of up against it as an opposing player, and I think that definitely. I think we talk about, just last question about nerves. I think if you've got a player who's nervous, who's not dealing with his nerves well, and the high ball goes up and the crowd's kind of saying a few things to him, then you can see some strange things happen. So I think it makes a massive difference to opposing players. But yeah, I think I think I always felt the balance was pretty good. I always felt it wasn't abuse. It was kind of more banter. So yeah, it was a good place to play, but obviously a very challenging place to play as well.
Brilliant. And we've had one for you from Frank Mike, who says, welcome to Kent. It's great to have you on board. As a player who moved up and down the order at Sussex, what was your preferred position in the team? And if you were still playing, where would you want to play in the Kent side?
Thank you, Frank. Where's my preferred position? I think I was probably at my best around, I suppose, 5 or 6. That was probably I was most comfortable. I did shift up and down the order in T20 cricket. But yeah, so I think that would be my preferred position. I think the game's moved on for my batting style, I think, now. So I think I'll probably be quite a long way down the order now, looking at the kind of Kent lineup. So yeah, I think I'll struggle to answer that without kind of putting myself down probably near 9, 10 or 11. So the game's moved on from my batting style.
Brilliant. And one for you, Paul. This is from Anonymous. It says, what do Kent need to look to in the next 2 seasons to really progress in the T20 format?
Yeah, good question. I don't think we're very far away from being a really, really good T20 side. Certainly in the last 2 years, 2018, we got to the quarterfinals. We had a bad day against Lancashire, but we had a pretty young side. People like Imran Qayyum, bowling 4 overs regularly, but still quite an inexperienced player. I think our batting lineup has gone from strength to strength, and certainly when everybody's available, and of course that's the downside of producing international cricketers, sometimes players aren't available, but certainly when everybody's available, I think we look a pretty formidable side, particularly from a batting point of view. I think our fielding has been outstanding, and the impact people like Heino Kuhn coming to our fielding side has been terrific. And from a bowling point of view, we've relied maybe a little bit too much on overseas players. Adam Milne has been outstanding for us when he's been here. Naby coming last year, brought some real subtlety, and of course his power hitting. And Hardus last year also added something. But I think the opportunity for, say, Matt Milne to really sort of challenge, get in the side, and you only learn by experience. Imran, continuing, I thought he had a really good T20 summer last year, and was maybe our most consistent bowler. So young players stepping up, and when you think that last year we didn't really see Joe at all, and Sam was injured for most of the year, I think we're getting stronger. I think Jack Leaning and Tim Goulville coming will make a difference, and they'll both challenge for positions. And actually, you look at our side, and the selectors are going to have some problems. I think if everybody's in form, it's going to be pretty difficult to get in that side, and that's only a good thing from Kent's point of view. So, I don't think we're far away. I think we just, we got into winning situations last year and didn't get over the line. It's that little bit of experience and asking people to take the game by the scruff of the neck and really drive us forward and win games for us when it really matters. So I'm encouraged that we're making good progress, and certainly, as I say, when everyone's available, I think we look a good side. So who knows? We were looking to qualify this year to get into finals day. We were looking to win it. And let's hope we get the chance later on this summer to do exactly that.
Brilliant. And thank you again for all of your questions. Unfortunately, we're just coming to the end of the session. So we are going to finish on the star question, which I will put to all of the panelists. So congratulations to Robert Bishop. We will be in contact. and you'll win a prize that has been kindly donated by Shepherd Neame. So the question to all of you is, you obviously enjoy winning all the matches you play, but is there a side that gives you that extra feeling of satisfaction when you beat? Paul, over to you first.
Oh, without doubt, Surrey. Beating Surrey is one of those great things which I think everybody, well, certainly in my playing time, it doesn't seem to change now, but Surrey was always a good feeling when you beat them.
Brilliant. And over to you, Joe.
Yeah, exactly the same. Having got to know a few of the Surrey boys, certainly over the last year or so, they actually call us a minor county. So the fact that we beat them quite often when we play them is incredibly satisfying. So yeah, 100% Surrey is up there with the most satisfying when we more often than not turn them over.
Brilliant. And lastly, Mike, over to you.
I won't say Sussex, but no, it's sorry again. It's weird, isn't it? You're playing different teams, and it doesn't matter when you're. I think when you're from the southeast, to beat Surrey is always very special. I think, yeah, I think like Joe said, to kind of, I think they describe a lot of teams as minor counties, and that little bit of arrogance they've got. It's always nice to beat them, turn them over.
Brilliant. Thank you for all your questions. I'll just pass it over to Paul to close this evening's The Spitfire session.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've picked up something that was of interest. Particular thanks to Joe. Great to see him, and what a great ambassador he's been for Kent as he's been representing England over the last 18 months. And really good to see Mike. Welcome aboard. We're really excited at having you on board. It's must have been a difficult period for you, as you were talking about earlier, but it's been fascinating to hear you talk today and to give our supporters and members a little insight. Life is difficult out there, so let's stay safe, and we will look forward to bringing you another of these forums. I haven't quite got the timetable in front of me, but please do look out on the website and social media, and it just falls to me to say thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to the next one. Thank you now. Good.